Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdsson of World Alternative Media here, and we're joined by Tim Pachote, the Liberty Advisor, a certified financial planner, and we are going to go into some very important news today because they are coming for your bank account, my friends, and we're seeing as much as 1,000 accounts a day just in the UK alone, never mind in the United States and Canada and other places getting shut down because of people's political views. This out of Daily Mail, it says Nigel Farage says he wants to build a powerful lobby group to tackle the major national scandal of debanking, as it's revealed banks are shutting up to 1,000 accounts a day. We also have stories like this coming out. This is out of Natural News. It says children now being denied bank accounts because of their parents' political involvement, which is insane. We heard about this already. WND.com. It says banks' attack on renowned vaccine skeptic includes closing accounts. And, of course, they're talking about Dr. Mercola and his businesses, which we're seeing happen to a lot of people that are against injections. Of course, we already know about what happened to Kanye West 9 months ago as JP Morgan shut down his account. We have, of course,
They didn't shut down Epstein, though.
Yeah, they didn't shut down Epstein. In fact, Staley appears to have been working with him all along. But we have stories, of course, from last year, like the banks freezing the trucker accounts in Canada. I know some people whose accounts were shut down, and this is becoming a trend, a running trend, and World Economic Forum has said things like digital currency could be used to block citizens from purchasing less desirable items, such as ammunition. So we have the shutdown of bank accounts. We have the push for CBDCs. This out of Natural News, CBDC takeover. UK banks becoming obsolete as high street financial institutions shift to online transactions. And this out of Yahoo Finance. I wanted to throw this headline in here as well because it's very ominous. It's out of Yahoo. It says WorldCoin says will allow companies and governments to use its ID system. And remember, we have, as of recently, people lining up down the block to get their eye scanned in order to get this digital ID. This comes at the same time as the United Nations has pushed their agenda forward to have a global digital ID attached to a global financial system that will be connected to your bank account. And there will be a unified ledger that looks at every single thing you do on a daily basis. And, of course, we have BRICS pushing the same thing. Look, we are in a world of hurt if we as individuals do not stand up to this today because your bank account will be shut down eventually for wrongthink. So we're going to go into this today, my friends, and kind of break down what we're seeing and some of the solutions to it. As I've said before, Tim is a certified financial planner. So if you guys want to go and get a free initial consultation, a free portfolio review, I urge you to go to that bit.ly link in the description and sign up for one now. It takes a few moments to do. Book a date and get a call. Of course, as always, I urge people to go and get prepared for the Great Reset by going to heavensharvest.com for long-term storable foods that are non-GMO. There's organic kits, heirloom seeds, water filtration and storage, and books on how to get started. Use code WHAM, W-A-M, and you get free shipping on much of these products. Versus inflation, today you're already saving money. So, again, get it while you can. There's already panic buying happening. There's rice shortages. There's wheat shortages. And, of course, there's mRNA meats, which, of course, you don't want that. So check those links in the description. That's heavensharvest.com, code WHAM. Anyway, Tim, let's get into this. This is really crazy news. We know that Nigel Farage saw his bank account get shut down. We know it was because of his support of Trump, which is interesting. And the head of the bank that in question actually stepped down from her position after there was a lot of outrage about this. But there's not enough outrage because it's happening to 1,000+ accounts a day just in the UK. How dangerous is this? How much is this encroaching on us? What can we do about it?
Thanks, Josh. So one of the things I was just doing, reason why we're so late to this call right now is because I was on the phone with a bank opening up another bank account in case mine were to get shut down, because obviously we've been speaking out against the New World Order and speaking against all this stuff for so long that, in the old days, if I would have seen this news 10 years ago, it would have completely freaked me out. But, David Icke did have a quote that says, if you can see the destination, you know the journey. And so we already know that the destination is eventually this digital dictatorship that Yuval Harari talks about. And in one of his slides, it says digital dictatorship incoming. And so if you know that that's the game plan, when guys like Josh and I and several others, and people like G.R. Griffin have been talking about this since the 60s, we know that the goal is to have a one world government, which is going to be done through a one world currency. And, and then at that point, once they get everybody into that system, they're going to make it where it's going to be controlled through blockchain, and it's meant to control you. But blockchain, like a gun, just like a gun can be used to kill you, it can also be used to save your life. And so there are private cryptocurrencies that they can't track, they can't trace, they can't surveil, they can't shut you down. They don't know how much is in it, and they don't know how much you sent or that you even sent it. Whereas the problem with Bitcoin is that they do know. But I would say Bitcoin is still a billion times better than the trash fiat when it comes to the ability to try to stop somebody.
Yeah, so it's just owning your own bank, having it in your pocket rather than trusting it on loan to a bank and hoping that they pay you back when FDIC insurance is a complete sham. Tim, how often do people come to you and that's their main concern when they want to sign up with you as your certified financial advisor? Is that a concern that you hear a lot from people that are signing up? Like, hey, are they going to shut down my bank account? What can I do? I've said some things in the past. Obviously, social media is a precursor to social credit. FedNow is now out, where they have this intermediary where they say social, wrong or whatever they dictate is wrong. They can stop transactions. I mean, how often do people come to you asking, concerned, worried, in fear for themselves, the good of their family financially?
Quite a bit. Now, I'd say the main thing people are worried about is the move to a central bank digital currency seems to be the main thing that people are worried about, in addition to the collapse of the dollar, which those things I think kind of go hand in hand, because they want to have you roped into the system that you can't get out before they collapse it. And it's not, and when they talk about collapse, I think it's not going to be like everyone thinks. Like everyone thinks it's going to be like a 2008 type style collapse, but worse. I mean, it is going to be worse, except this time when a currency did not collapse in 2008. As a matter of fact, the currency ended up getting stronger relative to all the other crap currencies that are out there. Not saying that I'm a fan of the dollar, just saying like how things ended up unfolding. And so this time when it unfolds, I think you're going to see a lot of financial assets just go through the roof when priced in dollars that are worthless. However, the bond investments are going to be absolutely trash. So a lot of times you bring up, Tim's a certified financial planner, blah, 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 which is great. But the thing is, being a certified financial planner means nothing when it comes to trying to understand what's going on with the Great Reset, because I've been a conspiracy theorist basically just as long as I've been a certified financial planner, pretty much the last 15 years. And so actually, I think 2011, I think, is when I officially became a CFP. And but I've been awake to all this stuff since 2009. So the only thing that a CFP really allows me to do is I know where a lot of the bodies are buried financially, because I know about the corrupt way of how things work, and then the textbook way of how things work, which aren't the real way of how things work. And so it's just I'm able to identify these things, which is why the first podcast I ever had in 2016 talked about something known as interest rate risk. And that's why I had a question that made it to Janet Yellen in 2016 when she was the Fed chair, asking her, well, what's going to happen when eventually, instead of the Fed making money, you guys are going to lose money? And then when you're eventually forced to raise rates due to inflation being out of control, not because you want to raise rates, the underlying value of the bonds are going to get absolutely shellacked. They're going to lose hundreds of billions of dollars, and now you're going to lose money. You're going to have to send the Treasury a bill. And so because of the CFP, I was able to recognize that deeper level of understanding, but it's not everything that we talk about. You don't have to be a CFP for this, but when it comes to advanced trust planning,
well, the issue is that there's not a lot of certified financial planners that know anything about this. That's the issue, because most people have their money through one of these banks or one of these advisors at a bank that pretends to be like everything's sunny days out there. We've got your back. We're going to invest in 5 or 10 year treasuries. You'll get basically not. In fact, you'll lose money with interest and inflation and all that kind of stuff. So it's obviously absurd, but a lot of people put faith in that because everyone has done that for so long. It's normalized. But of course, you having that knowledge behind you before or as you're becoming a certified financial planner, and then you wake up to all this stuff, is something that not a lot of people have. And right now we have FedNow, which was released, I believe, on the 18th or the 20th of July, and Rick Rule is speaking out against it, of course. But it's got horrifying implications, he says. And one of the implications is that you can literally have your transactions shut down in the middle. And it says, all the basic stuff. We want to protect money. Money should be a hard money. It should be all these different things, which sounds great, even though it's a precursor to CBDCs. But then they're like, and money is something that is socially acceptable. What does that mean? Socially acceptable? How is money defined in any way by what's socially acceptable? They're basically saying, hey, we're going to shut you down if we don't like what you're doing. So Tim, I wanted to ask you, what can people, if they work with you, do about a situation like that where they could go and send a transaction through PayPal, through their bank, through Cash App, Zelle, whatever, and it just doesn't go through.
It seems like there's really kind of two main types of clients or people who are out there. You got some people who've been in the system their entire life, so they might have an old 401k from a previous job. They might have a couple old IRAs, some different brokerage accounts. And then you've got the other people who, and I would say actually rightfully so, want nothing to do with being in the system. They don't have IRAs. They don't have 401ks. And I don't want to put them into IRAs or 401ks. But the fact of the matter is a lot of people, especially if you're 60 and above, you already have those. And so it's at that point, it's what can we do to make the best out of the situation, both from an investment standpoint of protecting your purchasing power, because it's not about protecting, let's say, $500,000. It's not about protecting the $500,000 because, we might, it's very easy to have $500,000 if you already have $500,000 10 years from now. But if that $500,000 only buys you $50,000 worth of goods 10 years from now, how do we make that $500,000 grow to then keep up with inflation? Because eventually, everything's always going to be fine until the day it's not fine. And so, there's sort of one strategy for the folks that want to be, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. We're doing things with investing in various commodities, investing in, gold, silver, other precious metals, rare earth minerals, obviously Bitcoin. Not everyone has to have Bitcoin, but I think, it is, and this is, not investing advice, do your own research on this. But, as someone that has done a lot of research on this, ultimately the goal is, I always wanted to, fight the Fed and we need to audit them and then we need to end the Fed. And then it's like, what? They're going to end themselves. I don't need to waste my mental energy trying to fight them or end them.
Instead, fix yourself, withdraw from the system more than fight the system, because the system's going to bring itself down eventually anyway.
Yeah, it's about the whole Buckminster Fulster attitude of, changing the game and creating a whole different game. And so we created a whole different game, not we, but, it's out there and there are solutions. But there's no one silver bullet because, you can't eat Bitcoin. Actually, bullets are another. And actually, that I know from an investing standpoint.
Yeah, you don't want to eat a bullet.
From an investing standpoint, one of the things that actually is really cheap right now, gun purchases right now, I think are at a 5-year low. Yeah. Ammo, I was just looking yesterday, like insanely cheap compared to where it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So, if you are going to stock up on something right now that is at a low, because not very many things cost less now.
Doesn't that mean that a lot of people are buying it, so that at this point there's so much demand, and they probably produced a lot after last year's gridlock on the supply of ammo and the supply of all this stuff? And obviously,
you're not going to be able to get ammo eventually or there's going to be just insane taxes on there, because when everything is pushed to the CBDC, and I think there's other companies, I'm not sure if it's MasterCard, but I know there is also a special coding these credit card companies are having, but I know that they are wanting to have special coding where you can't, let's say, use your MasterCard to go buy ammo. I know there's other companies too. Maybe that was for cannabis, but it's for both of those.
Yeah.
But it's just, we live in this slave system where the government, wants to essentially, the most important thing they can control is our thoughts, and they are controlling perception, because if you can control perception and what people perceive, you can control reality.
Yeah.
Government, it means gubernare is the root word, and then mente. Gubernare is to control, mente is mind, it's mind control, which is what's Klaus Schwab's latest book called? It's called The Great Narrative, because it's all, and that's what all these guys are doing at, the World Economic Forum and the Bilderberg Group that seems to not be really getting any coverage anymore now that the World Economic Forum is in sight, and all these other shadowy groups. It's all about really building consensus and then having their attack dogs and having their foot soldiers going out to then build that consensus. And then through things like, ESG and Larry Fink, where he openly talks about, we're going to use this as a tool to control you. And I do have someone that I know very well that is a Fortune 500 board member that said, yeah, these guys came to us, meaning BlackRock, and said, we want to tie your executive compensation to ESG and DEI and all this other, crap. And these are the people that care the least about, helping out minorities and the disadvantaged. And, it's all the children of the robber barons who set up this whole slave grid system now that want to be the ones to save us, where you've got John Kerry, flying around in private jets while saying he doesn't own one because, it's my wife that owns one, not me. And just laughing.
Well, I wanted to mention this out of this original article. It was funny because the Associated Press recently tried to debunk this, saying he didn't say this, but there's video of him saying it from the official World Economic Forum website. So it's just they didn't include the clip, of course, in the Associated Press debunking article, which is all you could find on Google, of course. But when you actually look at what he said, Prasad was one of the senior advisors for trade policy at Cornell University, and is one of the top guys at the World Economic Forum. And he said, and I quote, at one of their recent meetings, The government decides that units of central bank money can be used to purchase some things, but not other things that it deems less desirable, like, say, ammunition or drugs or pornography or things of the sort. So they're putting drugs and pornography in the same sentence as ammunition, as if it's like this vice thing. And of course, if you look at the growing propaganda it mentions in this News Wars article, with growing propaganda connecting meat consumption to climate change, which is absurd, obviously, the government could use CBDCs to ration how much meat people are allowed to purchase with the digital money. Now, this is one of the things that really blows my mind because, I mean, this is something I was talking about in reference to Davos back in 2014, 2015. And now it's like everyone's got it. Everyone knows now. This is what they're doing. This is how it's all rolling out. And it's not just getting rolled out. It's already rolled out in some ways, and they got the narrative. And, I mean, when you have this thing like WorldCoin, which is absolutely absurd, and they're scanning people's eyes and putting it on a government ID, they want to put it on a government ID system. And, of course, this comes, as I mentioned earlier, the UN calls for a global digital ID attached to your bank account, as the UN calls for global lockdowns for a financial catastrophe, a climate catastrophe, a supply chain catastrophe. They say if there's another pandemic, if there's a black swan event, whatever they want.
Online. They'll probably tie this to your ability to use social media to even get online, to be able to do anything.
Obama actually said that a few months ago. Obama said that there should be a digital footprint for everyone using the internet in the United States. So if people are doing things that are undesirable, they could be shut down. Like, look, if someone is going online and looking up child pornography, then yeah, sure, but you still can't use that as a reason to spy on absolutely everyone. Yeah, and the FBI is probably funneling out most of the child porn, and then it's connected to what? A digital ID, a ledger, which is already being built with 15-minute cities, so it decides how much you can move around. And on top of that, with the unified ledger that they're pushing forward right now out of the Federal Reserve, which they've already acknowledged, it is a system where everywhere you drive, everything you eat, everything, the amount that you walk down a sidewalk, they have sensors in the sidewalks and in the roads. That is the future totalitarianism that we can expect, and all because it starts with people being dependent on their bank account.
Set up by the guy that created ChatGPT. So you got the head of ChatGPT, the CEO of that, founder of that, who is also behind WorldCoin. So they then want to marry both of those together, which is why
Sam Altman.
2 years ago, my presentation on central bank digital currencies, over 2.5 years ago, which there's not very many people that did presentations on this, calling it that 2.5 years ago. And the year before that, I won a rant competition on CBDCs. So we're talking 3 years ago. My presentation was called Digital Dictatorship, and what you can do to help save your family, because this is what they want to do. They want to create a digital dictatorship where you're not going to be able to do anything. But ultimately, as this gets out more and more into the open, I think it's going to be defeated. Yeah. And a lot of the slaves who are going along with it are the same slaves, and I'm sorry if you're one of these, but who got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different jabs, and so maybe it is a bright side that they're ultimately shining light on these cockroaches is what makes them go away. And when you have the totalitarian, when 10 years ago trying to tell people, oh yeah, they want to, this was me, and I'm sure you too, I didn't know you back then, but they're trying to create like a one world government where they're going to have a world reserve currency, and then it's already the dollar, but then they're going to then tie that into AI, and they want to microchip people, and that sounded super crazy. Now it sounds like, oh yeah, like so passe that it's not even almost even worthy of covering anymore. Except this is the biggest fight. There is no bigger fight than protecting ourselves from the central bank digital currency, protecting ourselves from the incoming digital dictatorship, and protecting your ability to even spend money. I was just in Canada where I met a lady.
Sorry to hear.
Sorry. But I just met a lady at like a sub shop who told me that she was from Cyprus, and then I started talking about she had an experience with that 2014 when they gave everybody a haircut. And I believe I think they took like 65% of people's bank accounts above, I forgot the exact amount, like 100,000 or so. And so that was one of the real big first run-ups in the Bitcoin world, is when that happened, because a lot of Russian oligarchs were over in Cyprus. And so they gave what's called a haircut or a bail-in. And then, right around the same time, you had the vice chair of the Federal Reserve, Stanley Fischer, who's also the former Bank of Israel chairman, at a speech in, actually it was almost the exact anniversary of this. It was in, I forgot the year, but it was in Stockholm, Sweden, where he said, we are going to issue bail-inable long-term bonds, which means that basically the government debt or the corporate debt, they're just going to make it so then that way they just, oh, sorry, half of that's ours now. We're going to give you half it back. But, it's just a haircut. It's a bail-in. But honestly, I don't even think that's probably the preferred route. The preferred route, because that's a little bit too obvious when you're going through and you're stealing people's money. I think the preferred way is to steal money through inflation, which is why you and I have been complaining about everything going on with inflation for years and years and years. Which is why I wrote a book called How It's Rigged on inflation years ago. And, maybe we'll do this on another video, when it relates to all the good GDP, and I'll use good in air quotes, GDP numbers and inflation numbers. It's all BS. It's all rigged, but it's all to manage this perception that things are going great to keep Biden in office, when we all know that everyone is getting, say everyone, but the vast majority of people, their purchasing power is getting, less and less and less as we're into this, major cost
and
crisis.
as Biden's saying, hey, everything's great. The economy has never been better, which is not. I would laugh at it if it wasn't for the fact that people are suffering a lot, including myself a lot of the time these days. And, when I'm looking at something like, these claims by Biden, and then I see the U.S. gets downgraded, no one buys this. No one buys this economy is great nonsense unless it's like a rich white liberal in L.A. I mean, and those are the people that are afraid to go outside.
I mean, we've got $33 trillion of debt, or 32, 33. It doesn't even matter at this point. And then most of the debt is at like 0.3, 0.4, 0.5% interest. And now it's getting rolled over for close to 5.5% interest. And so most of the debt has like a 1 to 3 year maturity. So, I mean, every single year you're probably having like about a third of the debt rolled over. So that means in about 3 years, assuming the debt doesn't grow, which obviously it's going to grow, you're looking at, almost $2 trillion a year in interest, which is just absolutely absurd, where the defense budget's probably like $800-900 billion. So this is just, insane clown world. Well, from the interest and the debt, that's going to be almost $3 trillion. I don't know what the personal income tax receipts are, but I think it's around 3.4 trillion, 4 trillion. So you've got almost 100% of the tax receipts are going to be going towards interest, assuming inflation doesn't get even worse, and assuming the debt doesn't grow even more, which obviously it is. And, and this is just a debt cycle you're never going to be getting out of. And then what was it? I can't even remember her name. Karan Jean-Pierre. Kareem. Yeah, she doesn't even deserve me recognizing her name. Yeah. But what she said is totally misguided that Fitch would give them a downgrade. And so, totally misguided and out of base. It's just absolutely ridiculous.
One of the things that I've been looking at lately is this idea of 4,000 plus banks potentially going down in the next little while. That's just from Wise Ratings, who have gone over the balances of all the banks in the world, and there's 4,000 plus that are at risk. In fact, about 4,200 at risk. So if they are 90% wrong on that, and still 10% right, then you have 42 banks that are going to go down. If they're 99% wrong on that, I mean, it's pretty obvious that we're going to see a bunch of banks collapse, and it's going to be the perfect excuse to bring in these crisis control mechanisms that are CBDCs. That's why
there already would have been hundreds of banks collapse had it not been for this, rescue plan. So if you want to search engine FRED, it stands for Federal Reserve Economic Database, then BTFP. So they have what's called a bank term funding program. And what this is that banks are allowed to, let's say they have a bond that was $1 million par value and now it's $600,000. They can loan that back to the Fed to get the $1 million back on a 1-year loan. And then what will probably happen is they'll probably just re-up that loan in another year. So the banks actually got majorly bailed out by being in a spot where they didn't actually have to take on the unrealized losses, because they got this, in essence, free loan from this special purpose vehicle from the FDIC and the Fed, where they just created this money out of thin air on this loan. And actually, January of 22, I had a client webinar, which every other week I do client webinars, and I actually speculated that because of the rising interest rates, that what would happen is all these banks would have massive unrealized losses, and they'd probably be able to trade. This is on video. Be able to trade their bonds into the Fed to get 100 cents on the dollar. Now, that's pretty freaking close to what ended up happening, because instead of trading them in, they're just loaning them to get 100 cents on the dollar, which, pretty much the same thing. And that was January of 22. I pontificated about what they were going to do. And so absent that, there would already be hundreds, if not thousands. It would be absolute Armageddon, but this is just, but even you and I, we aren't getting those bailouts. If you have a pension, and the pension's invested probably 40-50% into bonds, they're not getting to stymie their unrealized losses.
Right.
They're going to have to realize these losses, and then they're never going to be able to pay out the full value of the pensions. And just look at something like Chicago. Their pension system, I think 3 or 4 years ago, was only 23-24% funded. There's no way that this is going to work out nicely without all the chickens coming home to roost, as everybody's oblivious. But what can you do? you can, well, first off, not investment advice, but, do your own research. But you can get things like having, everything that we talk about. I mean, we talked about ammo. I think that that's something you should have. I think you should have guns if it's legal and lawful for you to do so. I think you should be able to, have a food supply. Josh talks about this in every single video he does. I have a food supply. I think you should be growing your own food. I think you should be as resilient as possible, or striving to. Or if you're not in a position to, you need to get the skills, so then that way you can get the income and get the money to be able to do this stuff. And then obviously at that point, you've got things like gold and silver and cryptocurrencies, and having it on a hardware wallet, and then having other commodities. And then if you have IRAs or 401ks, there's other ways where you can do things that are outside the box. But if you're with, your typical guy, they're not going to be able to do that. And so, first and foremost, I've been knee deep in this world ever since I found out that was private in 2009, which I'm embarrassed it took me that long to figure it out. But, I figured if they can lie to us about this, and they can lie to me about this when I was in the class to win a national competition on the Federal Reserve, called a Fed Challenge, which most people don't realize that they have Fed challenges at a lot of elite schools where they basically indoctrinate the next, level of, little minions who are going to be in there. And our class saying was, in Fed we trust, instead of in God we trust. And, it didn't really, strike me as that odd, 2 decades ago, but now it's like, holy crap, like, look what they did to us.
Yeah, that's sick. That's above the line of Orwellianism. In Fed we trust. That's insane. And yeah, like I mentioned earlier, my friends, if you want to go and become a client of Tim's, and if you want to get that free initial consultation, we have that bit.ly link in the description for you to do just that. Get an initial consultation. He mentioned food. I'll just say use code WAM, WAM, over at heavensharvest.com, because that's a currency. That's a currency that has been, it's the oldest currency in the world. That is what keeps people alive. That is what has kept people kicking for hundreds of thousands of years. It is the most important thing you could have, more so than, a bunch of fiat currency in your mattress, which is just going bad by the day.
While you've got John Kerry running around saying that, agriculture contributes like 30% of all global CO2 and how bad the farmers
and he wants to get rid of 30 to 40% of all farms in the U.S. It's going to come down the pipeline, and then
how
you don't have food.
Organic farming is the worst of all. I mean, that's Bill Gates, not John Kerry. But
and Bill Gates is a big funder of The Guardian, and The Guardian was a big pusher of this narrative that we need to stop farms to stop climate change and bring people into big cities, into urban sprawls. Well, that sounds like a 15-minute city to me.
You put all the barium and aluminum and strontium up in the air. I mean, what's that? I mean, we already know. I mean, that's a
block out the sun.
We already know that the rhetorical question. But yeah, they're trying to block out the sun. And we did videos like 4 years ago on Bill Gates talking about blocking out the sun.
Yeah.
And it's just whereas before, they didn't call it blocking out the sun, but now they're just openly calling it this. So what do you think that's going to do to global food supply? It's a engineered manufactured crisis in order to get you to eat the bugs. So
eat the bugs, drink the sewage. As always, my friends, it is incredibly important that the way we handle this isn't by violence, it isn't by protest. I mean, we should protest on our own.
Vote with their wallet.
But like withdraw from that system. Don't keep all your money in the bank, because you are facing a severe level of danger these days if your money is in the bank. If you depend on all your money being in the bank, because how do they control you? There's two ways they can control you. Well, there's a few more, but two are the two main ones. Food, and of course that's a big part of it. Actually, shelter should be in there as well, and money. And if you cannot access your money because you said something that was considered wrong-think, then you're going to be in a lot of trouble. If you don't do something today, you won't be able to do anything tomorrow. I'm saying that metaphorically, of course, because it's not that we know when everything's going to go down. Oh, it's not tomorrow or a week from now or a month from now, or a year and a half, 2 years. I would never put my finger on exactly the date. We know this is happening. We know it's being rolled out, and in many cases it's already been rolled out. And we already know that in the UK they're calling for people with CBDCs, if they don't spend their money fast enough, it'll just be taken away from them.
Already doing that in China.
Yeah, and that is just like a weird programmability of bail-ins into the financial system in a way that they hadn't done previous. So again, my friends, there are ways to handle this. Again, check out that link for Tim. And, of course, use code WAM, W-A-M, over at heavensharvest.com, and you get free shipping on much of these products. Again, there are many ways you can help support us, and I'm going to start to wrap it up here, but I urge people to check out our GoGetFunding.com campaign, our Patreon, and Subscribestar as well. We're trying to raise money back from the $10,000 I went into debt to go and do this documentary on 15-minute cities. I thank those that have donated $4,456 so far. You guys are amazing. We are viewer funded, so you guys help out a lot in that. There's many ways you can help support us, including with Bitcoin and privacy coins and stuff like that. So check those links in the description. And finally, get ready to be healthy in the face of all this when they're trying to ban all this stuff, when they're trying to give you cancer. There's rncstore.com, Richardson Nutritional Center, your source for Laetrile online. Made famous by G. Edward Griffin's book, World Without Cancer. Get your apricot seeds, Laetrile, amygdalin, and vitamin B17 there. Anyway, we are going to wrap it up with that, but, we have been trying to do some live streams lately on Rumble and exclusively on Rumble, so go join us there if you haven't already as well. I hate saying Twitter or X, but we are trying to reach new people on there as well, so we're at World Alt Media. Of course, we're on Telegram. He's on Telegram at the Liberty Advisor official chat. That's advisor with OR at the end, of course. And, of course, we're on Telegram, Rockfin, Band.video, BitChute, Odyssey, Rumble, and Brighteon at World Alternative Media. I appreciate everyone watching or listening on one of the podcast platforms. As always, live by example, live freely, always. Hit that like button, share on social media, hit the notification bell, and hit subscribe if you have not yet already. We'll be back with much more here with Tim, with myself, with others. We got a lot coming up on the near horizon. I'm excited to bring it to you, and I'm excited about getting some of these solutions forward and actually seeing that new world of the future being created before our eyes, being built up, being constructed from the side of freedom versus the side of technocratic slavery, which, of course, they're moving faster than us. That's why I feel like I need to show from a mountaintop that we need to get on this, but we're starting to come along here, and it's really good to see. Anyway, thanks for joining me, Tim. Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdsson and Tim Pachote signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm looking for partners, collaborators, colleagues who want to join forces with me around the globe and create real value, generational wealth, and financial freedom for everyone else around the world. Get involved in the cryptocurrency markets, get involved in the NFT markets. This is your moment. Life all comes down to a few moments. Don't let this pass. Now it's not too late. Next year's going to be too late. Ultimately, this is about freedom. That's the way I see it. This is about giving power back to the people and enabling billions of people worldwide to use the financial markets to improve their lives and those of their friends and their families and their communities. Honestly, I think it's a violation of human rights not to allow people basic access to financial services. Because right now people are being kept in the dark, they're being robbed of education, and it's a travesty. And so I'm looking for people that want to join me and be a part of this solution. And that all happens inside the DeFi Academy. The gains my students are making are absolutely amazing. Double, triple-digit gains in the first month alone. That's amazing. This will change your life. Now is the time to get involved. I'm going to tell you exactly how my students in my academy made money in the last 30 days. I'm talking about real trading results. And let me just whet your appetite a little bit. Let me hit you with some numbers. I'm talking Brendan from New Zealand is up 68.77% on the month. Steve from Europe up 83%. Albert in Singapore up 169.9% on one single trade. I got Susan up 153% on her call options alone, also rocking 139% returns and 442% returns as well on individual trades. These are people that are changing their financial future in the last 30 days, but it's based on trading discipline.
I've graduated over 500 students from inside my academy from over 54 countries around the world. It's amazing. When it comes to crypto, DeFi, and blockchain, we love this space. We truly believe it's the future. This is down to our core. It's authentic to what we're doing, and everybody can tell through the camera because you can't make this stuff up.
If you're watching me now, wherever you are, I implore you, take 60 seconds right now and join my academy. Apply today. Now you've got a chance. Life all comes down to a few moments. What are you going to do? What's the choice that you're going to make?